What? What do you mean there's already 87 million squatting videos on YouTube? The instructors are all prettier than me? Okay, but were any of them wearing this hat? Judging by most online fitness content, you'd think squats have one purpose: making your ass bigger and thus more likable. And only one form: feet in alignment, knees behind toes, moving up and down. In reality, the term squat covers a broad range of movements whose common action is triple flexion of the leg joints. This means the hip, knee, and ankle all have to bend or flex to some degree in unison under load to be considered a squat or movement that utilizes squatting. Got it? The purpose of training triple flexion, other than being thick, is to develop lower body locomotion. Running, jumping, bounding, cutting, dodging, and more. In plain English, our legs move us around, and squatting makes them better at it. This opens squatting up to a wide variety of forms with many applications. Joint rehab, agility, power, balance, and yes, thickness can all be trained with squats. The question then becomes, what kind of squat is right for you? This can be daunting for the newcomer, so we're going to simplify things and give you an easy guide for tailoring squats to your individual needs. Let's go. First, there are 3 ways to squat. Bilateral, with the feet aligned. This is the standard squat we're all familiar with. Split squat, meaning the feet are staggered to some degree. This is also sometimes referred to as lunging. And single leg squatting, which means squatting with one leg. Pistol squats and Cossacks are examples of single leg or single leg dominant squatting. Now let's talk about why each of these squatting forms is useful. Bilateral squatting is great for developing maximum strength or power, as it's the most mechanically advantageous position for creating force. This is why it's favored by bodybuilders, powerlifters, and influencers. For lower body locomotion, bilateral squatting helps develop double leg jumping power. Split squats are great for fixing left to right imbalances in our legs, and for lower body locomotion, they facilitate running, sprinting, and bounding. And finally, single leg squatting. Single leg squats can also help us fix our left to right imbalances while greatly improving our balance. For lower body locomotion, single leg squats develop power for single leg jumps and bounds. Good so far? Here's where it gets interesting. Each kind of squat can also move in 3 directions, or tracks. There's vertical or up and down, which again is triple flexion. This is what we're all used to seeing. But there's also the horizontal or front to back track and the rotational or inward outward track. Let's talk about why we should train each track. The vertical track is how we develop raw power and full flexion of our leg joints. The top half of the vertical track is where we can produce the most force, whereas the bottom of the vertical track is where we develop our full range of motion. The horizontal track lets us shift load from the front of our legs to the back, or from the anterior chain to the posterior chain, and vice versa. Training the front of the horizontal track, or the knees over toes range, popularized by trainers like Ben Patrick, aka the knees over toes guy, total stud, check him out, protects and strengthens the front of the knee and surrounding tissues while increasing acceleration and deceleration ability. In other words, you can start and stop faster. Good for pretty much every activity. Training the back of the horizontal track strengthens the glutes and hamstrings while mobilizing the hips and protecting the back of the knee. The rotational track utilizes the internal and external rotation mechanisms of our leg joints. Training the rotational track stabilizes the hip, knee, and ankle in some of their most vulnerable, but also most potentially agile locomotive positions. This greatly enhances cutting and dodging movements at speed. If any of this looks wrong or weird to you, know that our leg joints are designed to move this way, or they wouldn't be able to. That's not my opinion. That's biomechanics. The reason many people don't train some of these less common forms, especially with the knees beyond the toes, is that they've either been warned that they'll damage their joints if they do, which is wrong, or they have simply lost them over time due to injury or inactivity, and now exploring them feels awkward and uncomfortable. Well, I'm here to tell you that's exactly why you should do them. Joints need to be trained in a multi-planar fashion because that's how real movement works. From simple tasks like walking downstairs to complex patterns like dancing or sports, the hip, knee, and ankle are exposed to countless variations of the 3 squat types moving along the 3 tracks. If they're not trained to handle all this variation, restriction, pain, and eventually injury will come for the weakest links. That's when positions become dangerous. Not because they're wrong, because they're underdeveloped. At Monkey Do, we believe there are no bad positions, just lack of preparation. If you care about your leg joints and you find this information useful, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, would you? Just takes a second and helps us out a lot. You're the best. If you're new to squatting and want to experiment with these positions, start by using a wall or chair for assistance and just your own body weight so you can gently load any of these positions slowly. A good rule of thumb is that any position that feels particularly weak or very restricted is a good position for you to train because that's where you're missing movement is. For example, I have good range of motion in a neutral bilateral squat, but when I add inward tracking to both sides, I hit some pretty obvious restrictions in my internal hip rotation. Therefore, I've been training this position under load more and more, and as a result, I'm now able to go much deeper into it and can even add extra weight. This has increased mobility in my hips generally and sharply reduced the pain I used to have in my right hip flexor from an old injury. If you want to use squats to improve particular skills, consider which squatting forms most closely match the skill in question. For example, in my main sport of parkour, bounding or striking striding, which combines running with jumping, is critical for maintaining momentum during speed contests, which is like parkour racing. Striding is actually one of my weaker skills. Part of the reason for this is because the quadricep attachments in the front of my knee are not as developed as they could be, and so I experience instability and knee pain when I try to stride with power from a deep forward position. This doesn't mean I should stop striding. It means I need to make my knees strong enough to stride the way I want to. To fix this, I've been building up my split squats in the forward end of the horizontal track to strengthen these attachments to give me more stability and power in the deep forward position that most closely resembles an exaggerated bounding takeoff. By training through this full range of motion, my knees are becoming much stronger and able to spring out of deep loaded positions without pain. This is making my bounding more stable and less hesitant, which will make me faster during races. Now that you understand the basics of squatting, you can start using them to create great movement. Thickness is just a bonus. If you enjoyed this video, sign up for a free Principles of Movement class where we learn more about squatting and other movements that help you live a better life in a less painful, more capable body. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Link in the description below. They gotta see it. I'm just showing them my thickness.